Kyle Klingman with Track Wrestling. We have Frank Molinaro, NCAA champion for Penn State, 2016 Olympian, and one of the most talked about people in our My Wrestling Hero project. Frank, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
I don't know if you saw that, but across the board, we had high schoolers, we had women, we had your competitors. When we asked who is your wrestling hero and why, so many brought up Frank Molinaro. What are you doing right, man? What are you doing to have so many people talk so highly of you?
Well, first off, I didn't know that, so that's really cool. I appreciate you letting me know. But man, I just had really good mentors. I've been around some of the best coaches and best minds in the sport, and so that's a big part of it. And I just think a big part is my parents and the values they taught me, and I think my faith too. I think the biggest thing at the end of the day, I think just making sure that everything I do points back to God at the end of the day. So, I'm glad that I can hopefully motivate some people. That's cool.
When you talk values, what kind of values drive you every day?
Well, definitely number one is God. I got to make sure that I put God number one before anything. Number two, I would say family. And number three, I think just being genuine. Just my parents are, high character. They're hard workers. They're mentally tough people. So they've always instilled that work ethic in me. And just being very genuine too.
What were your parents like growing up? Were they hard on you? Did they give you some latitude? What was that relationship like?
Well, she'll probably get mad for telling you, but my mom was probably a lot harder than my dad. My dad he's got a little bit of a pushover. He just take us to all the wrestling tournaments and always driving us all over, giving us the best opportunities. And my mom, she really toughened us up, made sure that, we were behaving in school, make sure that we were doing well with our academics, made sure that we weren't complaining or making excuses or missing practices. And, I remember when I was first starting out getting serious and I started going to clubs and my dad was traveling a lot and my mom she'd wake up at like 5 a.m, work all day, get done, cook dinner, go grocery shopping, drive me all the way up, 30 miles up the parkway, and then practice. She'd like do work at practice, and then drive us home. And that was like 4 days a week. It's like, in the moment, you don't appreciate those sacrifices as much, when you look back and reflect on how many people along the way were helping you.
When you look back and reflect on New Jersey and growing up in the state of New Jersey and being a wrestler that's successful in New Jersey, what is the New Jersey wrestling scene like?
Man, it is getting better and better. I think, when I was in high school, we had a lot of guys that went on to have success and win national titles, win Olympic medals, gold medals, win world medals. James Green, Jordan Burroughs, me, we're all around the same age. And you're seeing more and more clubs pop up. You're seeing more qualified coaches and All-American and national champion coaches coming back and coaching at the youth level. So it's really taken off since, when I was in high school. But the biggest things that I think are the toughness. You see a lot of athletic, tough wrestlers, really gritty. I think probably the number one thing that I would attach to New Jersey is grit when it's talking about the wrestlers.
You won an NCAA championship for Penn State in 2012, an individual championship, and of course numerous team titles. But one of the memories I think about is when you were not going to continue on, you were injured, you were roughed up, and Cael Sanderson had a movie analogy. Take us through what he said and how he got you to continue.
Yeah, he referenced the Jersey Shore. That was like the thing at the time. And, this was after my second match at the NCAA tournament. I was undefeated. I think I was 30-0. And there was 10 seconds left in the match, and it was a meaningless takedown, but I was just fighting it. And I kicked out and popped my knee out. And tore like 70% of my MCL. I got MRI'd after and stuff. And the next morning I woke up, I was still like pretty positive, but then I went out there to drill, and the first shot I took, I was like, my sank into my stomach. I felt sick to my stomach. I walked back into the locker room and I just knew, like, I can't do this. Like, it hurts way too bad. And I went into the locker room and nobody was in there. And I went in the urinal and I laid on the ground. I was like crying, just like weeping, like it's over. You know, I've had like 20 shutouts in a row before this. My whole career was lining up to win a national title. I was 8th, 5th, 2nd. And, you know, I had like 2 or 3 matches left. And Cael kind of took me out of the took me in. He came in there. He came into the bathroom because he knew when I left the warm-up area something was up. And, yeah, he just knew exactly what to say to me in that moment. And he had really kind of earned my trust up to that point because he was just so consistent. You know, and if he was going to – if this is how it was going to be and this is how I had to do it, I was going to take his word for it. And I took his advice to heart and paid off with my mindset.
What is it about Cael that gets you to that point where you believe what he's saying and then you execute what he's saying?
You know, I just think that practice what you preach. You know, you can kind of see the enthusiasm and passion in all people, really, you know, just by the way they live. You know, I've always really benefited from having good role models. And when I say good role models, just people who, you know, have lived it and they've been through it. You know, like take Zeke Jones, for example. He's made 9 world teams, world champion, most technical wrestler. You know, it's like he can't sit there and preach to work hard. Well, he put in the time. He competed till he was 31, double sessions, 700-800 workouts a year in and year out. So I think the consistency is what really makes the difference in the coaches.
What was that transition like? You came in with Troy Sunderland and then had Cael Sanderson. How was that for you to transition into a new coach?
It's fun, you know, especially when you're going somewhere where the coach knows more than you and the coach is better than you. I think it's always a really exciting time because, you know, and then you take into account, like, people have different systems. You know, they've had success a different way. So I'm always open-minded to learning how people operate and learning, you know, what drove them to success and always trying to take bits and pieces out of each person that I come across. You know, then you got Coach Pritz. He's been coaching for 20 years, you know, and he's been around multiple programs, multiple people, and just kind of seeing his process and seeing how he picks and chooses, you know, how resourceful he is. So there's a lot of stuff I can learn from him, you know, and especially Mark. Mark was my coach my freshman season. I had 19 losses. I think after that, I might have only had 3 losses or 4 losses the rest of my career. But Mark comes in there. He graduates from Iowa. I think they had just won the Nationals. He comes to Penn State, and somehow he was my coach. People probably don't even know that. But, you know, he had a huge impact on me. He really gave me that confidence and taught me how to fight for your goals. Even if things aren't going right, even if you're not there yet, if you haven't arrived, you know, Mark really just helped me believe in myself. And then fast forward the last 12 years, you know, he's always been there in my corner and he's always kind of supported me and helped me from a distance. So now fast forward, you know, me and Mark are now living in the same place. We both have 3 kids under 6 years old, 5-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and he has like a 1-year-old. I have a 2-year-old. So I think everything happens for a reason. It's just, it's exciting to be in a place where you have 3 other really, really strong minds that you can learn from.
Wrestling is unique because it seems like a lot of people think about credentials when it's wrestling. You have some great credentials, but how do you get someone to believe that they can accomplish more than you may have even accomplished when you're coaching them?
I think so I feel really passionate about this. I think if you can teach the kid how to love himself without wrestling, I think he can do anything. You know, so I think that's really the key, is kind of teach them, you know, that it's not how to love themselves as a person outside of wrestling, you know, and also just how to have enthusiasm and passion, you know, because I think you really have to, you know, especially if you want to go to a entirely new level in wrestling, you have to move from success to craft, you know, and I've said this I think we might have talked about this before, but success says, what more can I accomplish, right? I win the nationals and then all of a sudden I want more. And then I win something else and that's not good enough. And success never lives up to it, but craft's entirely different. You know, even though I'm retired, I'm still going to hammer away at this craft until I die. You know, wrestling is my single-minded focus. I'm a wrestling head. I wake up, everything revolves around wrestling. And it brings me great joy to continue to evolve and improve and, you know, elevate my wrestling IQ. So that's my one thing, is just teaching the kid that it's not about the success, it's about the craft, and it's about your character. Because at the end of the day, you know, wrestling has been a good vessel for me because it's forced me to improve in so many areas. It's forced me to constantly assess myself and break myself down and build myself up year in and year out. And I've always, you know, I always enjoyed doing it because I knew I was making investments in myself, and that at the end of the day, when I was done wrestling, you know, hopefully I'll be a good person and I'll be able to succeed in whatever I do. So we got to teach these kids, you know, how to succeed in life, and we got to teach them how to have the right perspective and manage their minds. And I think the wrestling part comes easy because that's fun.
As you know, the higher you go up as far as Olympics or NCAA, the more technical it gets and the more you have to pay attention to details. How do you balance that? How do you make sure you pay attention to the details, the technical aspects? And then you hear it a lot with coaches where you hear the athletes saying they weren't necessarily the best technical coach, but they brought it out of me. They brought that craft out of me. How do you balance that as a coach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I would rather be overcompetent than overconfident. And I think there's a real temptation sometimes to not pay attention to all the little details and not pay attention to what you're paying attention to. But I think it makes all of the difference. You know, I would rather know that I didn't leave any stone unturned, that I just kept, oh, I stink at this, I'll fix it. I stink at this, I'll fix it. Versus, nah, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to grind my way through this and grit it out. Yes, there'll definitely be a point in time where you have to do that. But I think sometimes like we can get overconfident, and it's like a false sense of confidence. But my confidence, you know, and this is probably from Zeke and Bruce and Bill, all the national team coaches, this is the one thing I probably have absorbed from them, is just taking more of an analytical approach to the sport. And, you know, just thinking more objectively and really figuring out all of the details, because the details matter. They matter so much. So we have to be overconfident and avoid trying to be overconfident, if that makes sense.
You built a team there at Arizona State as far as the coaching staff. You, Zeke Jones, and Mark Perry. What do you each bring that's unique that makes you think you can complete the puzzle and possibly win a national title?
Yeah, so, I mean, right off the bat, I think me and Mark are both from the Big Ten, you know, both four-time All-Americans, national champs. So it's good to bring in that Big Ten flavor into the mix. I think, you know, from a technical standpoint, top wrestling will improve on the mat. You know, they've done a good job. They're unbelievable at neutral. So I think that me and Mark can really help add to the arsenal on the mat, and the mat skills and riding and grinding, hand fighting. And Coach Lee, I mean, you could ask just about any person out there on planet Earth, and they tell you he's a nice guy and real genuine, you know, down to earth. So he has an incredible network, you know, and he's built great relationships with all of the clubs and all of the coaches and all of the high school kids from being a good person and working hard. So, you know, he's going to always be extremely valuable in recruiting, and also his work ethic. You know, I think he lives his life to a certain standard, you know, and people catch that, you know, they catch that kind of stuff being around him. So his positivity, Zeke Jones, I mean, the dude's just a mastermind. You know, you ask people like Jordan Burroughs about Zeke Jones, and he's going to tell you Zeke's, you know, he gets it. He's the real deal. He helped me become an Olympic champion. He helped me win the worlds with a broken ankle, you know, because he knew the right details. He knew the right way to train. He knew the right way to peak. He knew that, so Zeke is on top of all of the science. He's on top of all of the details. And he's just a mass planner. He's always trying to account for everything. So we're not going to miss anything or get sloppy or get too aggressive, or just get too reactive. He's not reactive at all. So I think that's probably one of his strong suit. He responds, and he responds with intention and deliberate for everything. And then my biggest thing is, I think the culture. I think I can continue to, add to the positive culture with my work ethic and toughness and obsession for wrestling. And the other side, recruiting too. I think right now I'm in a good position, just coming off a 10-year competition run. I competed for 10 extra years post college. So, and that wasn't just 10 years of, I'm just going to do this for fun and for funsies and see what happens. I was obsessed day in and day out, and I believed I was going to be the best. And I came within 1 second of a bronze medal. So part of the reason why I put off coaching for so long, and I didn't want to, but I always knew in the back of my mind, this experience would come in handy. I had 3 different national team coaches. I learned the Oklahoma State system, and I'll learn more from Mark. And moving forward, I learned the whole Ohio State system. I was with Roselli for 2 years and Coach Guerrero. So I got to see how all of these perennial powerhouse programs operated and had success. I was also on 2 national championship teams for Penn State, and I coached on one. So the benefit there was I spent my, college years in the program and reaping the benefits, but then I got to see how it gets operated behind the scenes. So that was a huge benefit for me. And then I went to Virginia Tech, and I got to see how programs do it, without having all the resources, without having the Big Ten money, without being in a hotbed of wrestling and connected to the best state. So, you learn other things, you learn other tricks. And then at the end of the day, I think you just take your own flavor and add that to it. And, for me, that's just being the gorilla hole, just being tough and going out there and fighting people to the death to win. So I know we got a lot of guys on the team who are just unbelievably talented, unbelievable speed, unbelievable technique. So, if I can add some grit, if I can add some of that flavor into their game, I think that'll also help too.
Of course, you mentioned Lee Pritz, and people love Lee Pritz. He's just a fun guy to be around, as you mentioned, but he is pretty tunnel visioned, and Andy Hamilton did an interview with him where he was so locked in that he didn't know who James Harden was when he was there. Do you see that tunnel vision with him where he's just locked in and doesn't know anything about wrestling?
He just is always talking about wrestling. He loves it. The other day he walked. It's impressive. I can't believe he did it, to be honest. I tried it. I'll tell you what happened in a second. We have a pool in our backyard, and we had a 70-pound medicine ball. He goes, "Hey, we should see how long we can hold our breath and run under the pool." I'm like, "What?" I was like, and then we were like, "Does this ball sink? Will it break?" Just takes the ball, throws it in the pool, picks it up. He goes down back and like gasping for air when he gets out. And then I'm like, "You can't get it twice though." So he keeps trying. Like he tries like 15 times in a row. And then finally I got the video camera out, and I'm like, "I'm going to videotape this. You have to get it." He gets the next one, down back with a 70-pound medicine ball in one breath. So yeah, he gets locked in for sure. But like I said, I think the biggest thing, he's got a great energy, and that's what you need to build a great program. I think you have to have a positive mental attitude. I think it has to be fun. Wrestling is hard enough. We don't have to pretend to be angry and be mad at the world. We have to make sure that we have a sickening obsession to be the best, and we do everything right, and we can have fun. So I'm just glad that the coaches here are all about, not only just all about working hard, but they're all very positive, and they like to have fun. And, for me, wrestling is always fun. So I like to keep that, presence around me.
take that concept of having fun in wrestling. If you talk to Jay Robinson, he says absolutely not. Wrestling is not fun. The only fun thing is winning. And then you take the new narrative, it is wrestling can be fun. How do you balance that? Because it's an insanely hard sport. How do you make wrestling fun?
Yeah, I got to agree with that one part that J-Rob said. I mean, winning is fun. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It's painful to lose, but it's more painful to not try. It's like at the end of the day, I think it's fun because I think about all the people that wake up and they're just trying to have a meal. They're just trying to get a hot meal for the day. And we get to wake up every single day and chase championships and chase excellence. We get to surround ourselves with great people, great minds, and grow together. So I think the one thing about gratitude, if you don't exercise gratitude frequently, it goes away. It's like gratitude's like this. You walk into your house and, maybe someone in your house is cooking brownies, and all of a sudden you smell that brownies and you feel really good. It just reminds you of something, or it just makes you feel good instantly. And then you sit down on the couch 5 minutes later and it's like you don't smell the brownies anymore. So you got to smell the roses. You got to be grateful. This is right now we can't wrestle. It's brutal. Even just watching that wrestling the other day and seeing the event and seeing like the whole thing work out, nothing went wrong, knock wood, that made me extremely happy. And it also made me extremely hopeful that we'll be back soon. So I think when we get back to wrestling, I think people will probably have a greater sense of, that it's a privilege. Working out is a privilege. That's why, I don't believe in punishing guys with, hey, I'm going to punish you and make you do hill sprints. No, we're not going to reward them with working out for missing class. Make them sit down, make them put their phone down and do study hall homework for 2 hours. But you don't reward someone with working out. So I always try to keep that gratitude perspective. And I think gratitude is the key to everything in life. I think you can either look at the good or the bad in any situation. You have that power and you have that choice. You're not just a victim of whatever your mind is telling you. You have the power to choose. So the thing about gratitude is you can use gratitude to reframe any situation in your life and turn it into a positive. And that's what I love about gratitude. It also makes you tougher, because the alternative to gratitude is you start to get a little bit victim thinking. You start just focusing on just the bad in that situation, and it brings more of that about, and if you let that linger, then it becomes a bad mood. And then if you let that linger for even long, it becomes part of your personality. And then if you let that linger even longer, it becomes your temperament. So, I try to stay positive.
You have a nice influx of female wrestlers coming into the program with Sunkissed Kids. What's that like, having that presence there and having so many high-level women?
It has been fantastic. A couple of years ago, I actually flew out to Colorado Springs and I interviewed for a position with USA Wrestling and the women's side of it. And then nothing really happened. I went to Virginia Tech, so we didn't have any women athletes at the time. And now we all kind of got thrown into this situation. The girls were leaving Iowa, things got all kind of shifted up, and it's really awesome. So with the girls, I've coached guys my whole life. I've been around the best wrestlers in the world. These girls work harder than, most people I know. They work harder than most people I know. They're obsessed. It's not like, we're just doing this to do it. No, they're just as obsessed as I am. They don't miss a workout. They never show up late. They never complain. They're super appreciative and grateful for any time and energy you spend with them. And, I just love, they're very coachable too. Anything that you want to talk to them or bring to the table, they always have that humility to improve. That's what I've noticed so far, but there's no difference. Crap, I'll be lucky if I don't get my butt whipped in 5 years from some of these girls. They're tough. So it's fun to add that in there. And I think, for us, it's going to be a tremendous benefit because these are elite level girls. You know, you got a kid coming out of high school, you know, and let's say you have a 24-year-old woman who's been on the world team, who's won Olympic medals or something. Listen, those high school kids, they got a lot to learn from that girl, you know. So I don't want to use the word coaches, but I mean, they're going to help us tremendously by just paving the way and showing some of these younger guys and coaching them up in areas of their life. So we're grateful to have them. They're great.
You clearly have an enthusiasm for wrestling and what you're doing and coaching. Have you always had that, or was there a moment where you transitioned into that and knew this was where you wanted to go?
Yeah, I've been wrestling since I was 4 years old. I played all the sports, and then when I was in high school, I decided to specialize and really go all in on wrestling and start doing some extra stuff and preparing for college. But I've always found great joy in wrestling. I remember, true story, I was in first grade, and our teacher gave us this paper, and it was for the yearbook. And I never forget this, clear as day. I was filling out the paper, and it was like, what is your favorite school subject? What is your favorite memory of first grade? And then, like, the last question was like, what do you want to be in 20 years? And my initial reaction was like, I thought I'd be in, like, the NFL. I loved football. And then this is like, as a first grader, I'm thinking like, man, I'm shorter than everybody in my class already. I'm not going to the NFL. And then I wrote down on that paper, I want to be an Olympic wrestler. And 20 years later, you know, God blessed me with that goal, and I achieved it. And I just think that's what I always wanted in life. I always wanted to, you know, I love sports, so I wanted to stay in sports, and I wanted to reach the pinnacle of whatever sport I chose. And it just happened to be wrestling. It fit my body perfect, and I had great coaches right in my backyard in New Jersey.
You mentioned that bronze medal match earlier from 2016. Is that a match that goes through your head constantly?
No, nah. It's time. Every once in a while, I'll just kind of like pop it up just to see like, what would I have done differently to touch his knee to the ground? And I already know the answer, but yeah, it was good for me though, because at first, you know, I wish I could have just got that bronze medal, retired right there. You know, it would have been kind of icing on the cake, but at the end of the day, it drove me to really stretch the last 4 years. And when I say stretch, you know, got some good wins. You know, 2019, make the national team again, beat Jordan Oliver. So that, you know, that was down at 65 kilos. You know, so not getting that bronze medal forced me to go another quadrennium, and the experience that I gained was incredible. I would have never met Roselli, and I would have never been able to kind of learn, you know, his system of freestyle and his turns on top. You know, now I have these moves, and I have these golden nuggets now, you know, because I went back 4 years and I had to figure out how to win a different way, you know, because in the beginning of my career, I was raw. I didn't have any moves. You know, I was just going to head block every shot and then try to go beast mode on one takedown and win. But when I got older, I couldn't overwhelm people as much. So I had to learn to be more tactical. I had to learn to be more efficient. I had to learn how to be mentally tougher, you know, because I was cutting 20 pounds and basically competing with feeling like air. So I try to just focus on the positive and reframe it so I can get better from it and make gains. So I don't regret it. I'm just more grateful that I was able to actually compete with the best people in the world and beat the best people in the world, because that was something that I told myself my whole life. And I think it helped me. You know, I think you should pay close attention to what you tell yourself, whether you believe it or not, or whether you're just saying it to say it like, oh yeah, this is just my thing. Then it kind of becomes your thing, you know, because as a kid, I always said I was never good enough. I never won the kids states. I never went to Fargo. I didn't win a junior state title. I had multiple losses in middle school. My freshman year of high school, I didn't win the states. And then bam, you know, one day I kind of had this breakthrough, you know, and I wrestled Jordan Burroughs in the state finals my sophomore year, win the states, and then all of a sudden I said, nothing is impossible. So it's all about what you believe and what you tell yourself, the story that you tell yourself over and over again in your mind, that kind of becomes your reality. You kind of manifest all of the stuff that you think on a perpetual basis. So for me, it was, hey, Dad, I lost this tournament. I still kind of stink, but I could beat anyone in the world. If I'm on and I'm feeling good, I'm a little bit of a head case right now. I'm getting in my way. I'm sabotaging myself. But if I'm on, I can beat anyone in the world. And then I believed it. So careful what you tell yourself.
You and Jordan Burroughs were on the 2016 Olympic team together. When you're in training camp, did he ever pull you to the side and say, all right, retribution, man?
Oh, he's gotten his payback and then some. He's definitely gotten his payback. But, yeah, I love JB. I mean, we were just talking about him yesterday on our mindset. We were talking about mindset, and we were actually talking about grit, and I was trying to give the kids a real life example, somebody they know right now. And, you got Jordan Burroughs. This guy's like, he's trying to break all John Smith's records. He's trying to win all these titles in a row, and he's on cloud nine. He wins the Olympics. He wins the Worlds. Then he wins the Olympics. He's got like 60, 70 matches in a row. And about 1 month before the World Championships, he runs his last sprint of the day. I'm going to make sure I beat everybody, get this last sprint. And he jumped up to put his foot on the wall and broke his ankle. And just think about that. Put yourself in his shoes for 1 second and think about that. He breaks his ankle, and, there's probably a 6-hour period where he's like, this is terrible. My life is over, whatever. No, plays it off completely cool. Stands up, doesn't make a scene, right? Because everybody's watching Jordan Burroughs, and that'll be all over the internet in 2 seconds. He gets up, walks out of the gym, and decides, hey, I can either become a victim or I can become a victor. Because somebody could break their ankle and say, it's all over. I blew it. I can't believe this happened to me. Why me? But he took the whole opposite approach, and decided, what if I could win the Worlds though? What if there was a surgery I could get? What if I got this operation, they put these screws in my ankle? What if I just don't wrestle, but I keep my conditioning up and I get closer and I feel good? What if I feel good? Maybe I can still win. And then all of a sudden, we hear after the tournament how he had a broken ankle and won the Worlds. So it's just a great example of however you perceive things to be, ultimately whatever you attach yourself to and hook into, that becomes your reality. And I think that's one of the grittiest things I've ever heard in my entire life. I'd say that's number one. And then I'd say number two is when Adrian Peterson completely destroyed his knee and then came back and broke every record. It was insane. So you can go 2 directions with setbacks. It could either be a setback that, you get stuck in for this long period of time, or it could be a setup for greatness and you could become a legend because of it. So that was kind of, I thought that was cool.
When you're at wrestling functions or after dual meets, do you find it's hard to get away because people just want to talk to you all the time?
Yeah. And, even my wife now, so my wife's dad wrestled at Arizona State and her brother wrestled at Cal Poly. So she's been around wrestling her whole life. And it's nice because, she's not the kind of wife that's going to say, hey, you're not in wrestling practice anymore. She's just as obsessed as I am. And she loves it. And she's very involved and very helpful. So, even when we're at our house, we're always talking about wrestling. Mark's kids come over. We got them wrestling in the grass, yelling like maniacs. So we're pretty much connected to wrestling 24/7, like you said. And I enjoy talking with, the donors, and I enjoy talking with the boosters and the fans because, at the end of the day, we got to make sure they like our product. And, we have to take their criticisms and, make sure that we give the people what they want, because the people are supporting the program. The people are, they're helping gather all these resources. Our Sun Devil Executive Board, they fundraise a lot of money, for the school, for the Sun Kids, and they help us out so much. So at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we give the people what they want. And if that involves hanging and talking about wrestling, I'm all for it, because I know that the sacrifice they make from their full-time jobs and their careers to support our program, you know, it goes a long way, because that's what we need at the end of the day. And that's also why I came here, because, you know, even just getting this job, it was COVID had just happened. You think like, man, Cael, what are we going to do? They're not going to hire anybody. And when I got to really see behind the scenes and how many people were connected to Arizona State, all the way from the donors to the ADs. I mean, two of our ADs, I mean, two of Zeke's bosses, one of them played in the NFL for, I think, like 14 years, Scotty Graham. He averaged 4.4 yards. He's a legend. You know, I think he was a multiple-time letter winner in college. And then Don Bakke, our other senior associate AD, he was a football coach for almost 25 years, and he was in intercollegiate athletics for 32 years. And then I got the pleasure to meet Ray Anderson, and, I mean, he's just an absolute stud. I mean, the guy's an absolute stud. I mean, he gets along with everybody. He's a great leader, a great motivator, great communicator. So when you have all those people overseeing the program and facilitating the success, it's a good family, tight-knit, very transparent, and I like that. Helps.
Frank, thanks for this time. I hope you enjoy that beautiful view out your window there that you get to see every day. But thanks for sharing your time, and look forward to seeing what the Sun Devils will do this upcoming season.
Forks up. Thank you.